Our first song, hymn number 122, if you want to follow along in the book, hymn number 122. Let's sing. Since the love of God has shed priceless blessings on my head, I have made it my own. I will hide it in my heart, that it never may depart. It shall rule there alone. The love of God within the heart, with kindly hand and warmth and heart. The soul will glow like Jesus in His tender mercy. If the heart is made His dwelling place, the love of God goes like a flame in the ship. It is the same. The love of God will never fail nor lose His glory till we see Him face to face. Since the love of God came down with His love and life to crown, He will would remain. Greater love could not be, for the would be in our heart. He would reign. The love of God goes like a flame, with kindliness and warmth and warmth. The love of the Lord, like Jesus, in His tender mercy. If the heart is made His dwelling place, the love of God goes like a flame through endless years. It is the same. The love of God will never fail nor lose His glory till we see Him face to face. While His love are true and bright, we are walking in the light. He has shown us the road. We His glory must reflect, lest our dimness and neglect keeps us sober on His God. The love of God within the heart, with kindly care and warmth and heart, the soul will glow like Jesus in His tender mercy. If the heart is made His dwelling place, the love of God goes like a flame through endless years. It is the same. The love of God will never fail nor lose His glory till we see Him face to face. Hymn number 189. 189. Master, the tempest is raging, the billows are tossing high, the sky is overshadowed with blackness, no shelter or help is nigh. Carest thou not that we perish? How canst thou lie asleep? When each moment of madness is threatening, awake the angry deep. The wind and the waves shall obey thy will. Be still. Whether the wrath or the storm cross sea, or demons or men or whatever it be, no matter when swallow the ship where lies the master of ocean and earth and sky. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace be still, peace be still. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. I will. Peace be still. Whether the wrath of the storm shall see, or demons, or men, or whatever it be, no water can swallow the ship where lies the master of ocean and earth and sky. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace be still, peace be still. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace, peace be still. Master, the terror is over, the elements sweetly rest. Our sun and the comet are nearer, and heaven's within my breast. Linger, O blessed Redeemer, leave me alone no more. And with joy I shall make the blessed harbor, and rest on the blissful shore. No wind and no wave shall obey thy will. Peace be still. Whether the wrath of the storm shall see, or demons, or men, or whatever it be, no water can swallow the ship where lies the master of ocean and earth and sky. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace be still, peace be still. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace, peace be still. 230 will be the next song. 230. Worthy of praises, Christ our Redeemer, worthy of glory, honor, and power, worthy of all our soul adoration, worthy art thou, worthy art thou, worthy of riches, blessings, and honor, worthy of wisdom, glory, and power, worthy of earth and heaven's thanksgiving, worthy art thou, worthy art thou. Lift up the voice in praise and devotion, saints of all earth before him should bow, angels in heaven worship him, saying, worthy art thou, worthy art thou, worthy of riches, blessings, and honor, worthy of wisdom, glory, and power, worthy of earth and heaven's thanksgiving, worthy art thou, worthy art thou. Lord, may we come before thee with singing, filled with thy spirit, wisdom, and power. May we ascribe thee glory and honor, worthy art thou, worthy art thou, worthy of riches, blessings, and honor, worthy of wisdom, glory, and power, worthy of earth and heaven's thanksgiving, worthy art thou, worthy art thou. Please mark your books to hymn number 909 will be the song after our lesson. Hymn number 909. Down
and get this thing trained where it comes on its own. Yeah. I'm gonna be quiet. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. So, I hear Ron got in my lesson this morning. 10 Commandments. Huh? Your class is on 10 Commandments this morning?
We brought it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, back that up. No.
It was actually on the new code.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good point because where are the 10 Commandments?
I'm sorry?
Where are the 10 Commandments?
In the Old Testament, Old Law.
Okay, so we've been talking about what line makes them binding on us today, or are they binding on us today?
Well, the point I was trying to, why do we have an Old Testament law in our courthouses and not Acts 2:38? That's all,
That's the point you were trying to make.
that's the point I was trying to
That's a
make.
very good point. And principles are one thing, but establishing it as the covenant is another. Now here's the thing. Of the 10 Commandments, what's binding on us today? Let's keep us going.
9 of them.
9 of them. Why 9 of them, Joey?
Well, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy is not in the new covenant, and the other 9 are in one form or another, and all the tentacles of the law.
Okay. Now here's the other thing. Gotta run. Always one trying to escape. The other point of it is, what is it about those 9 that makes them binding no matter what the law?
Might say they're universal.
Universally? How about inherently sinful? They're wrong no matter what the law is. That's why they're part of the covenant. And we're going to sum that up a little bit in 2 weeks. Did I say 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks. Okay. So we're down to number 8. Shall not steal. What does it mean to steal? Huh?
Take possession of that doesn't belong to you.
Take possession of things do not belong to you. That's a law enforcement definition, pretty good definition. Okay? Taking possession. Taking what's not yours. Okay? Can it unlawfully take, can you lawfully take possession of something that still be stealing? We're going to lift that a little bit too. Yeah. Just because it's legal don't mean it's right. Because we're talking about legal in man's eyes versus legal in God's eyes. So a lot of those things we need to consider. That's a lot of what we do, and I'm not clicking. I think that thing's got to be unplugged. There we go. Now notice what I said, in all its forms. Because firstly, what do we think about when we think about stealing?
Something that doesn't belong to us.
Just taking something, outright taking something. Okay? Take something that doesn't belong to us. A piece of candy, some money. But God gives it up. Notice here in Exodus 21:16, God puts this under stealing. He who kidnaps a man and sells him, or if he is found a man, shall surely be put to death. Now think about that. I want you to think about the realm of stealing, taking what is not yours. Is it your right to take this man and sell him? No. And God puts it in the form of capital punishment. Now, how many times in this country has there been kidnappings for ransom? Too many to name. See, that it fits in that principle. That's what we want to up because a lot of people get the idea of stealing is just, well, if I take something, along this line, what if you pull up to the gas pump? You go to put the gas in, and you go to put your card in, and it won't take your card because it's already turned on. Do you get free gas?
No.
Why not? It's there. It's already been paid for by somebody. That would be most people's mentality. Oh, I got free gas. No, you didn't. You're taking what belongs to somebody else, what somebody else paid for. It's not yours. Even if it's a mistake being made on the inside, it still belongs to the company. Look at Exodus 22, 1 through 8. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Look at the penalty God gives for it. You know what that is in percentage? If you steal an ox, you're to get 500% back. A sheep, 400% back. If the thief is found breaking in, then he is struck so that he dies. There will be no guilt for his bloodshed. What God is saying there, contrary to some of our country states today. He had no business being there in the first place. How do you distinguish between a thief and a murderer when he's coming through your door? You won't stop and ask him. That's what God is saying is you don't know what he's there for. And if he gets struck by you protecting what is yours and he dies, it's his responsibility. Are you going to bear a burden of some guilt? Yes. But it comes back to the point is that guilt is personal guilt because a Christian, a godly person doesn't want to take a life. But at the same time, they're not going to be held accountable by God. Notice it says, if the Son is risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. He shall make full restitution. If he is nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. Notice that. Whatever he did, whatever he caused, he's responsible for. If he doesn't die, he's going to make full restitution. And if he has nothing, guess what? Sell it for it. No, if the theft is certainly found alive in his hand, whether it's an ox or donkey or sheep, he shall restore double. If a man causes a field or vineyard to be grazed and lets loose his animal and it feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. I want to stop there. People get the idea today they can just let go wherever they want to go. Not get permission. What is God saying? You let your animals loose in somebody else's vineyard or field, and it tears it up, you got to make restitution. You know what he's saying? It's stealing. It's trespassing.
Also, you have a potential of more gain from what's been destroyed, all the work that was put into it. And so that could be a lot to come from that that wasn't destroyed. So
yeah, they lost a lot of gain. And there's a lot more there. No, if fire breaks out and catches in thorns so that standing grain, or the field is consumed, he who kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. Okay, Randy, remember those grass fires?
Yeah.
Randy's had a couple of grass fires lately, but they've all been on his property. But notice what he's saying, whoever starts the fire, if you let it get out of control, you're responsible. If a man delivers to his neighbor money or articles to keep and is stolen out of the man's house, if the thief is found, he shall pay double. Why is he saying that? If the thief is found. There we go. Notice, if the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought to the judge to see whether he has put his hand into his neighbor's good. You're entrusted with something, you're responsible for it. Oh, somebody broke in and stole it. What do they call when people, like managers, dip their hands in?
Embezzlement.
Embezzlement. You know how many times people was embezzled from companies and claimed there was a thief? I remember one guy thought he was real smart. He locked up, left, took all deposits with him, came back 5 minutes. Used his code to turn off the alarm. The same code he used to set the alarm. Thing of it was, the police were out going, well, how did you only be gone 5? Well, I was outside in a hurry. He goes, how did you not pass him then? How did he get into the safe? How did he get things? They ended up getting a probable cause, wanted to search the car, and found all the deposits. He's trying to embezzle. That's the same thing. That's what it's talking about there. If the thief be found, okay, then you know it was truly stolen. If the thief doesn't found, you need to inquire and determine whether it was really a thief or if the man himself has stolen the goods. That's what he's telling them. Notice, if a person sins, and here's what God expects to do, commits a trespass against the Lord by lying to his neighbor about what was delivered him for safekeeping, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or if he has extorted from his neighbor, or if he has found what was lost and lies concerning it, and swears falsely, in any one of these things that a man may do in which he sins, and it shall be because he has sinned and is guilty, that he shall restore what he has stolen, or the thing which he has extorted, or what was delivered him for safekeeping, or the lost thing which he found. I found that interesting. What happened to finders keepers?
Doesn't work.
God says no. You got to try. Or all that about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore it full value, add 1/5 more to it, and give it to whomever it belongs on the day of his trespass offering. And he shall bring his trespass offering to the Lord, a ram without blemish from the flock, with your valuation, as a trespass offering to the priest. So what has he done? God says, you want to be right with me? You not only got to make restitution, you got to add 1/5 to it. And you got to bring the trespass offering. Why have penalties?
To discourage bad behavior.
To discourage bad behavior. Why is it calling it a sin enough? Because it isn't. Just calling it a sin isn't going to stop people from doing it. Having to realize there's a consequence to the sin is the only thing that will deter people. Notice all these different circumstances that we're bringing up. Things that normally in our mind we wouldn't necessarily say fall under, you shall not steal. throw you a curve. What sins did David commit in the situation with Uriah the Hittite?
What didn't he commit?
What did he commit? I like that. How many of the 10 commandments did he break? I'm thinking about 9. He wasn't looking to God, so there's 4 right there. Commit adultery. He lied.
Coveted his neighbor's wife.
He coveted his neighbor's wife. We ain't even got to that one yet.
He stole his neighbor's wife.
Stole his neighbor's wife, murdered his neighbor. If it had been on a Sabbath, well, we know he didn't keep it holy. He'd have all 10. But see, we don't think about that sometimes. We just look at the big ones or what we think is big and don't realize how what we think is minimal isn't a big deal. But it leads to big deals. It leads to bigger problems. Notice Leviticus 19:13-15. You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie to one another. Why is that? Why are those 3 all right there together?
Because we're supposed to be honest.
Huh?
All hand in hand.
They always fall hand in hand. What did you say, Teresa?
We're supposed to be honest.
We're supposed to be honest. And that's the thing about it, that these 3 always go hand in hand. I guarantee you, every thief you ever found is also what? A liar. Think about the guy I told you about that tried to embezzle. What did he do? He stole it. He tried to lie to cover it up, blame it on the thief. Notice, and you shall not swear by my name falsely, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Think about that. It's tied right in there. How many times have you heard somebody say, I'll swear on a stack of Bibles? I think of what Jesus told the devil, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. What authority do you have to declare God as your witness? That's what you're doing when you're swearing before God. You're trying to use God to declare Him as your witness that you're telling the truth. No, you shall not cheat your neighbor, nor rob him. The wages of him who is hired shall not remain with you all night until morning. He's saying, you hire somebody for wage, you pay them. Oh, but what if you don't have the money? Then don't hire them. Don't hire them. That's still stealing. Falsifying records. I knew guys that used to try and change time cards, keep their labor right. Used to have employees call me, how do I get this fixed? They didn't work at my store. I didn't play that game. I tell them who to contact, how to get it straightened out, how to get their money. And I'd have people mad at me. Well, either do your job right, don't steal from your employees. My thought always, if you're stealing from your employees, what are your employees going to do to you? And on that, did you ever think that not giving a fair amount of work for the fair wages is stealing? And I love this one. If a stranger dwells with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him. The stranger who dwells among you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Notice the point that God is saying. Just because he is not of the house of Israel doesn't mean you can steal from him. or mistreat him in any way concerning the law. You know those things that Jesus got into, you have heard it said? You've heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemies. Well, that was their excuse for hating all Gentiles. Because they counted Gentiles as enemies. So we can mistreat them, we can steal from them. Notice it goes on, you shall do no injustice in judgment, in measurement of length, weight, or volume. You shall have honest scales, honest weights, an honest ephah, and an honest hin. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Now all these ephah and hin, those are measurements that they had. How important it is to have the right weight. The old days when people go to the butchers, what did they watch for?
They watch the scale.
They watch the scale. What do they look for?
Finger homes.
You know, like one time, man, when my wife was going to the doctor, I went with her, and she stepped on the scale, I put a foot on it. Almost died that day. You get the point? But people literally did this. And they would have unfair scales that have them. You know, back in the old days, you go into Lowe's or somewhere now, and even on the to get back, everything's computer. They just put the numbers in, and the computer figures out how much paint each color put in. Back in the old days, we had weights and scales, and we had to pour it in, balance the scales, and have those weight. If that weight was off, guess what happened? That paint didn't mix, or it didn't match. And sometimes it get difficult. But that's the thing about it. If you don't have honest weights, honest scales on it, what are you doing? You're cheating your customer. You're cheating your neighbor, you're cheating whoever it is. And it doesn't make it right. No, therefore you shall observe all my statutes and all my judgments and perform them. I am the Lord. You know, the Lord basically saying, I don't care who you are. This is what I've said, and this is what I expect you to do. And it carries on to today. Notice, in Deuteronomy 25:50-16, in previous verses we go through a lot of what we already said. You shall have a perfect and just weight, a perfect and just measurement, that your days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord your God has given you. And notice this part. For all who do those things, all who behave unrighteously, are an abomination to the Lord your God. What does abomination mean? Huh?
Lawless.
Lawless. Cool.
Something you don't want to even be around.
Something you don't want to, it just makes you, there you go. Teresa does hit it. You can't stomach it. God can't stomach it. What's the two greatest commandments? Or what's the greatest and the one likened to it?
Love the Lord your God with all of your mind, all your body, all your spirit, and love him as yourself.
Pretty close. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. And the second is likened to it, love your neighbor as yourself. You had the gist of it. Paraphrase. Give you a brownie point at home. How much can you steal from your neighbor and still say you love him? How much can you cheat him and still say you love him? So this comes down to why these are still inherently sinful. Jesus said on those two things hinge all the law and the prophets. Well, guess what? On those two things hinge the entire new covenant. Matthew 21, 12, and 13, that Jesus went into the temple of God, drove out all those who brought and sold in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And he said to them, it is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. Did this twice, early in his ministry and then just before his crucifixion. Why? What was the problem?
They needed a sacrifice in some cases, and they would make it a little bit higher than it actually was. They were dishonest with their business.
Here's what they did. And you're right, he told. People would come there oftentimes needing a sacrifice, travel a long way, they'd bring their doves, or they'd bring their whatever they needed, and they would purchase it from people at the temple. But first, we can't take Roman money for these sacrifices because this is God's stuff, so you have to give us Hebrew money. So you got to take your Roman money and go over here and pay this exchange fee for it, which was higher than normal. And then we're going to charge you more than normal once you get that. For your sacrifice. You shall not deal unjustly with your neighbor. Were they not stealing from them? Okay. Hurricane Laura. It went up. About as bad as it is now. At least now they got an excuse. Then they didn't have an excuse. It was just gouging. Just taking advantage of people because of the circumstances. That's what God is talking about. They were just taking advantage. There was nothing wrong with them to be able to sell that stuff, but first of all, they should have not been going on in the temple gates. Second, they should have been doing what was fair and just to those buying. Who were they mainly taking advantage of? Their own people. Which of their own people?
The ones who came from other countries.
Okay, but more of a other point. Think about these doves.
Poor.
The poor. The poor. They're taking advantage of the one that don't have anything to begin with. Jesus would even condemn the Pharisees about stealing widows' houses. Now, here we go, one that's touchy. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 through 12. Paul speaking, for even when we were with you, we command you this, if anyone will not work, neither shall he eat. Stop there. Why not let him eat?
As an example, so there won't be more who won't work, who want free food.
Okay, that's one reason, but why not let him eat?
You haven't earned it.
Have to earn it. Well, let's see. You ever feed a cat outside your door? How often? A lot of people shaking their head. No, you understand the principle. You start feeding that cat, what's going to happen? They're going to be coming back. Guess what else going to happen?
They're going to bring friends.
They're going to bring all his friends. Hey, we got a free buffet over here. Come on. Same principle. If you start feeding him, what are you going to have to do?
Feed all his friends.
You're going to have to keep feeding him. He's never going to go to work as long as you're feeding him for free. And we're talking about the one who is able to work. Okay? Now, what about his family? Make it tough. What about his family? Do you feed his family? Huh? Oh, Got you.
If he knows.
Got you.
If he knows his family's taken care of, he doesn't have.
Listen to your wife, Randy. Randy said it's not their fault not working. Connie, in her wisdom, said, but if he knows his family's gonna be fed, why's he gonna work? See, first of all, let's understand, what do people use? What do they want to tug on? Our heartstrings. What about the poor little children?
And we're supposed to love.
And we're supposed to love, but sometimes love is saying no. Even when it's tough. Notice, for we hear that there are some who walk among you in a disorderly manner, not working at all, but are busybodies. Now those who are such, we command and exhort through our Lord Jesus Christ that they work in quietness and eat their own bread. Goes on to point to say that if they don't, cut them off. Cut them off from fellowship. If they're not going to act like a Christian, don't treat them like a Christian. Or that they are a Christian. Not saying mistreat them, but he's saying don't give them that fellowship and call them brother. But he does say admonish them. You know what children hate the most? I know what I hated the most was when I messed up and I kept hearing about it and hearing about it. Somebody said something to me, I said, I'd rather have a 15-minute whipping than a 40-minute lecture. Because that 40-minute lecture usually didn't end that day. It'd be picked up the next day, and the next day, and the next day. You know what, that's what the Lord has said. Every time you see him, when are you going to repent? When are you going to change that? When are you going to go to work? What are they going to start doing? They either going to get right with the Lord, or they're just going to stop being around you altogether.
And that's the hard part.
Huh?
That's
the worst part, but that's not what you're wanting. You're wanting them to get the understanding. I'm telling you this because I love you.
And it's not easy, but it's their soul that we have.
It's the
their
soul.
love. I mean, God.
It's the soul.
And his people.
What good is it to provide someone with their physical needs if we're not going to get them right with their spiritual needs? There's the flip side of that. Now, Ephesians 4:28. I did this other part to get it into the context which I have concluded in this talking about, and understand that that person who is sponging off the church, able to work, but not doing so, is a thief. Notice what Paul says here. Let him who stole steal no longer. Now, first thought is, well, he's talking about just a common thief, right? Look, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give him who has need. Instead of being that guy that's standing back here and taking, able to work, not talking about not able to find a job. I'm not the guy that's sitting there choosing not to work and trying to take from the church to steal. And Paul says, let him who stole steal no longer, or let him labor, go to work. And so that he can also give those who have need. Here's the thing about it. If a church is blessed, it may not ever affect who they give to. But what if they only have a limited amount of funds? And they give it to somebody who really can go out there and go to work? What happens when somebody's truly in need comes along and there's no funds? Who stole from that person? Who stole?
the one who took it when they didn't need it.
The one who took that didn't need it or wasn't willing to do what they need to do to have it. I think I shared with you a while back about the people that every couple of years go to Florida make money off the church go. First time they showed up, they was driving an old Saturn. Second time they showed up, they was driving a nice Lexus SUV, brand new. And that was my comment. Boy, the brother been good to her. Have you ever read that we are to be good stewards? I'm not saying we're not ever to have compassion, but we are to ask questions. We should be trying to help people, but also help them in the way they need to be helped. Michael?
Well, even if we go to the point of, if we do kind of have that compassion, but yet we don't get to the root of the problem, aren't we still saying be warm and well fed and not?
There's a principle of, why was Jesus a carpenter? Let's go there since you brought that up. Why was Jesus a carpenter?
So he can work,
So he worked. Why was Paul a tent maker?
so he can provide for himself.
Who taught Jesus to be a carpenter?
Well,
The Father. Okay, what was the Jewish tradition?
do not let a young man leave the house unless he had some sort of skill.
Because the thought was that if we don't teach him to work, we teach him to steal. So the root of the problem, sometimes, Mike's got a good point there. The root of the problem for most is not being taught to work. Some have been taught to work and choose not to work anyway. But there's part of that root of the problem. What about the other roots that there can be?
No skill,
No skill.
and not developed.
How about no skill in money management? They ask this question, some person continuously asks for help from the church. Does the church have the right to ask about their finances? And to help them to see where they're spending their money, where they could maybe have a better chance of making their ends meet. I remember a situation came, and I don't know if you ever found this out. I found it out through a couple of different ones, but part of our life, they'll send you a cutoff notice when you're 30 days late. They might wait till you're 60, they may wait till you're 90. But when they get to a certain point, they say, you can't pay this online with a credit card. You can't pay it with a check. You gotta pay it with cash. I know this because we had a young lady who was a member of church asking for that help with her electric bill. Anybody want to make a guess on how much that bill was?
Over 1,000.
No, not quite. $679.33. You know why I know the exact number? Because I've kept it in my mind because I'm the one that had to go get it paid. We tried to pay it online with a credit card. It said no. I call them, I tell them what the situation is, who we are, call the toll-free number, and the woman says straight out, this bill is 4 months past due. This is the third time she's been 4 months past due. It can only be paid in cash, and gave me the addresses in that area that I could go to pay it. Not a check. Not even from the church. Guess who was asked for help 1 month later to pay their electric bill? Guess what she got mad about. We need to see your bank statements. We need to figure out where your money's going that you can't pay your electric bill. Why? Why?
To help her and to be good stewards of
Help
God's
her
money.
good. Okay, but here's the question. What should be the primary things you pay?
Mortgage, utilities,
Your rent, your electricity, your food. Everything else you can do away with. And if you're not paying those, where's the money going?
The things you don't need.
Ah, things you don't need. And she's like, that's none of your business. And I look her straight in the eye is, you're asking for the church's money, it's every bit our business. Now, if you don't want us in your business, don't come asking. That's time we paid her.
Yeah, we did the same thing.
Sometimes it's
We
necessary.
had to have proof before we pay a certain person
Yeah.
bill.
Where's it going? What's going on with it? She left about 4 months later, and you know why? She left to go to another congregation, and her exact words was, we're gonna go, I think they're more able to help me financially like I need. She wasn't there very long either. It's sad. It's sad that people want to do this. But I'll tell you this, you go ask the government for help, what they gonna ask you?
Finances
They gonna want to know about your finances,
and proof of your payment.
proof of payment. And if you got something they decide you don't need, guess what? They're gonna tell you to sell it.
It's also sad that because of people like that, that try to scalp the church, that people who are truly in need would be reticent to ask for help.
Well, you know, and that's true. Sometimes there are people truly need, don't want to, are hesitant to ask for two reasons.
You're embarrassed.
One is embarrassed. What's the other? They're like, I don't want to be counted among those.
Right.
Okay? Now, here's the thing. If you're not among those, guess what? You're not going to be counted among those. So now you just got to get over the embarrassment part. There is a difference between asking for a helping hand and a handout. I've known people. My worst brother was somebody that always had his hand out.
Some people want to hand up.
Some people want to hand up. That's a helping hand.
Yeah.
Some people can't even help their situation. Lazarus, Luke chapter 16. He couldn't help his situation. He just had to help him wherever he can. But we're talking about people who are unwilling to help themselves. And that's the thing. God calls them a thief. So what all are you stealing? Any other questions? My good question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a point, look at God's word. Whenever you change God's word, you're stealing his word. That's what you do.
That was one point I meant to make. When you start changing what God has said, and thanks for bringing that up, because we got off that. You're actually stealing from God. The devil stole from God in the garden. He stole his two children.
And also the potential of someone's salvation.
That's it. That's what you're stealing, is people's salvation. You're taking it away from them. And that's a thief, dude. That's a thief. Let's stand and sing.
There's a fountain breathing for you and me, that saves all things through the stream. 'Tis the fountain of Will you come to the fountain free? Will you come? It's for you and me, thirsty soul. Hear the welcome call. Is a fountain open for all. There's a living stream with a crystal gleam from the throne of life. Now it flows while the waters roll. Let the weary soul hear the call that forth freely goes. Will you come to the fountain free? Will you come? It's for you and me, thirsty soul. Hear the welcome call. 'Tis a fountain open for all. There's a rock that's cleft and no soul is left that may not its pure water share. It's for you and me, and this stream I see. Let us hasten joyfully there. Will you come to the fountain free? Will you come? It's for you and me, thirsty soul. Hear the welcome call. 'Tis a fountain open for all.
Again, thank you for being here this evening. Al, thank you for the lesson. Mike, would you lead us in the closing prayer?